Hello and welcome back to the Paleocast Gaming Network. My name is Jake, I'm a vertebrate paleontologist, but that does not matter today. Today I am betraying my fossil fishes, frankly because there are no video games about fossil fishes, and instead I'm going to tell you about my favourite geological region of the world. And what better way to do that, while I'm still trying to self-isolate a bit, than by hijacking? Commandeering. We'll use commandeering. Commandeering a truck in American Truck Simulator, which is a super detailed dad game, I guess, in which you drive a truck around America, you make deliveries, you get money on those deliveries, or if you're me, you get in horrific car accidents and lose money. Anyway, the game does a surprisingly good job of recreating the feel of each state, and in doing so, accidentally created a pretty good geology road trip them up. So that's what we're going to do today. What could possibly go wrong? Okay, welcome to the Pacific Northwest, and more specifically, welcome aboard my little truck. What do I know about this truck? It's blue. Yep, that pretty much covers it. As you can see, I can look around the cabin, I can waggle my head out the window like a dog if I choose to, and apparently I operate the steering wheel with telekinesis, so that's quite interesting. Today we've been tasked to deliver 2 trailers worth, which is a thing apparently, worth of lumber from Coos Bay, Oregon, all the way up to Spokane, Washington, and hopefully by the end of it you'll have a pretty basic idea of how this part of the world fits together. Quick disclaimer, I do not have a driver's license, nor do I really intend to get one anytime soon, so if you're watching this, already panicking that one day you're going to encounter me on the motorway after that display, don't worry, it's not going to happen. And yeah, I should just explain, I have no idea what I'm doing. Yes, I can hear you yelling, I know, I'm disappointed in me too. Okay, I'm just going to quickly run through what I'm doing and how all of this works. So you play the game with a mouse and keyboard, which is very strange, but every single button on this keyboard does something different. It's actually really intimidating. So we have window wipers and hazard lights and indicators and high beams, an adjustable seat. Right, but get this though, if you press H, you get a little honk. Pretty cute, right? But why would you bother? Because if you press N, you get an even deeper, better honk, rendering the little honk completely pointless. In the bottom right hand corner you can see I've got a little sat nav, and above that are some useful icons, namely the state of our truck, how much fuel we have. Yeah, you can run out of fuel in this game and it is terrifying. Not as terrifying though, so the icon next to it, that little bed, that's our sleep indicator. So as much as this is a truck driving simulator, it's also a bit of a truck driver simulator. If our character goes on too long without rest, they straight up fall asleep at the wheel. The screen blacks out for about 5 seconds, and by the time you've woken up, you're usually in like a ditch surrounded by 9 Greyhound buses just kind of overturned in your wake. So we'll try to avoid that best we can. This journey's going to take, like, for real time for me, many hours, so this is going to be really tightly edited down. I'm hoping that I can get it to under half an hour, but we shall see. As you can immediately see, this feels so much like the Pacific Northwest. We've got our little gloomy beaches and small towns and misty woodland, presumably crawling with Bigfoots. And coming up on our left is, I guess, the first little stop on this adventure. I'm sure many of you already know where this is going. I promise this is going to be like the super duper really quick basic introduction just to catch everyone up to speed. So about 100 kilometers out there or so is the Convergent tectonic plate boundary that is responsible for much of the terrain we're about to explore. As I said, this is super basic. As I'm sure you all know, when an oceanic and a continental tectonic plate collide, the denser oceanic plate is subducted underneath the continental plate, forming a convergent plate boundary. The Pacific Ocean is bounded almost completely by convergent plate boundaries all along the western coast of North and South America, as well as the eastern coast of Japan, Indonesia, New Zealand, all the way around. This has been dubbed the Ring of Fire. Now here in the Pacific Northwest, the convergent plate boundary runs more or less parallel to the coastline and marks where the denser Juan de Fuca tectonic plate is being pulled underneath the North American continental plate, where it then falls into the asthenosphere. Here, water is released from the oceanic plate, which lowers the melting point of the asthenosphere around it to produce a buoyant liquid melt. This rises into the crust to form vast magma chambers, which feed an arc of stratovolcanoes which run up the length of the country, in this case, the famous Cascade Range. Of course, when I say 100 kilometers out there, I of course mean in the real world. Let me just check. Yep, the game just ends. Thought it might. Right, before it gets too dark to even see anything, we should probably go and get some sleep. So that's our next objective, I guess. I think we're going to go for an overtake. Here we go. Hold on tight. Oh, hang on, our turn's coming up. Oh god, come on. Are we alive? Did we make it? I had my eyes closed. I think we're good. I never understand how this works in America, so can someone explain this? So that's now green. But we... Oh, hang on, we should be in that lane, shouldn't we? Oh, let's just go. I'm sure it's fine. Ah! Yeah, this looks like a pleasant place to spend the night, I guess. I'll see you in the morning. Right. I think we're good to go. Oh, turn the engine on. I'll go back to bed. That's very tempting. Right, before we go, I want to have a quick... What do you mean? What's crushed vehicle? There's nothing... Where? What? Oh. Look at them all waiting for me. That's very nice. Thank you. Thank you. What did we... Oh, God. Okay, so we're just driving up to Olympia National Park, but first, if you just look... Oh, God! Oh, okay, well, we recovered. Yeah, if you can just see through the trees there, you can see Haystack Rock at Cannon Beach, which is a really nice little geological landmark. Maybe I'm going a bit too quick. That might be a problem. It does take a while to get used to the fact that in this game, there's consequences. Engine malfunction? But we've only just set off. I was hoping for that gag to be a thing like, oh, God, at least after like Mount St. Helens. Oh, come on. There's a little tram there. Oh, it's really interesting. I've never noticed that before. I didn't know they had trams here. Huh. The things you notice. Well, this is an interesting detour I seem to have found myself on. Where the hell are we going? Oh no, don't break down here. No. Civilization. And seamlessly reintegrate with society. There we go. Oh my god, I love freight trains so much. You have no idea how much one person can love a freight train so dearly. Look at this bridge, it's like a big roller coaster or something. I love it. Entering Washington State. We've now moved on from Oregon into Washington. Excellent stuff. Oh, let's just try not to die. That's fine.
A little touch of hope goes a long way, spreading color as we glide upon the grace. A little touch of hope goes a long way. Time to hack away your shackles, claim your dues, yeah.
Okay, so we're now approaching Lake Crescent, which is the first, I guess, proper stop on this field trip. We'll just pull up here. Oh, well, yep, perfect. That'll do. So we've just stopped here at Lake Crescent, which is the kind of northernmost point of the Olympia Peninsula, which is, well, as far as we can go in the game at least. And as you've seen on the way over here, we've driven through some wonderful glacial mountain ranges. But you might be a little surprised to learn that none of these mountains that we can see now are volcanoes. If we look on a map here, you can see we've not actually reached the Cascade Range. They come down here, we're here on the Olympia Peninsula, which is luscious green because it's actually technically kind of a rainforest, which is really cool. So how did these mountains form? Well, first things first, they're made of shale, which is a sedimentary rock made of thin layers of mud and silt that once accumulated on the ocean floor before being compressed and consolidated into solid rock. So how did material from the ocean floor create a mountain? Well, as subduction has taken place, sediments from the downgoing oceanic plate have been scraped off of it from the continental plate and accreted into this wedge of intensely deformed rock in the forearc, which we call the accretionary wedge. In fact, the entire Olympia Peninsula is the accretionary wedge of this tectonic regime. So not only is the North American continent moving west towards Asia, but beneath the ocean, shale is continuously being added to the west coast, imperceptibly shifting the coastline further and further west. And this material has since been uplifted and carved into mountains and valleys by glaciers. But if we just cross the road, you can see a completely different kind of rock, with this sort of vertical jointing pattern, which we associate with igneous or volcanic rocks like basalt. This is in fact the crescent basalt, which is about 50 to 56 million years old. And if we look at a geological map of the peninsula, you can see this shale here in this sort of, I don't know, like a brownish green colour. I'm colourblind, sorry. But you can see this kind of U-shaped band coming around here. That's the basalt. This is the kind of rock that is going to be forming continuously in places like Hawaii and Iceland. But hang on, Jake, you just said that the Olympia Mountains aren't volcanoes, so how did this get here? Well, it kind of came with the shale. Like I said, North America is moving west and new material is being added to it as it moves. But 60 million years ago, the west coast would have stopped roughly where Seattle is. As subduction dragged North America west, collecting sediments from the seafloor, there was also a Hawaii-like volcanic island, which has since been named Silesia, standing in the way. Instead of being subducted, the island of Silesia was actually caught up in the accretionary wedge as it collided with the continent. All that pressure and heat squished and fused the land and accreted it in between all of that shale to the west coast. So to summarise, we're standing in a region made up of compressed muds from the seafloor that was scraped off of the subducting oceanic plate, uplifted to form a glacial mountain range. But not only that, at one point an entire volcanic island, bigger than Hawaii, was tipped on its side and squished into this whole process. That's geology right there, that's amazing. I hope you found that as mind-blowing as I did. We'll just climb down here and head on to our next location. Ah, look at that truck. Ah, it's amazing. And why won't it let me back in the truck? Oh no, come on, don't do it. No. Oh no, I can't get back in. Back in a minute. So the more attentive viewers among us may recognise that maybe I sound like I'm recording on a different day. Maybe the truck's a different colour and make and size and everything. Had a bit of technical difficulties, but we're all fine now. We're just gonna carry on to Seattle like nothing happened. Look at those guys playing Farming Simulator. What a bunch of losers. And as you can see, we're now heading into Seattle. Oh, I love Seattle. I really miss it, actually. I was here in 2018 to see the Tufts Love T-Rex skull being prepped at the Burke Museum. Highly recommend it if you ever get the chance. It was actually a really weird time to be in Seattle, as due to nearby wildfires just to our north in British Columbia, the entire city had just been choked with thick wildfire smoke. Like, you couldn't see anything more than like 50 meters in front of you. It was really quite spooky. Anyway, this is not just a nostalgia tour for me. Seattle is really important to our geological story. It sits slap bang in the middle of the Four Arc Basin. This has accommodated vast glacial deposits. In fact, 15,000 years ago, the city of Seattle would have been buried under a kilometre of glacial ice. Since the ice retreated to create the waters of Puget Sounds, the entire basin has been filled with glacial muds, sands and gravels. That's why Seattle is so sort of hilly, because it's built on swarms of large glacial deposits like drumlins. This has caused various engineering challenges, so right now we are driving over Lake Washington, the longest floating bridge in the world, and due to the deep water and the soft sediments at its base, standard bridge supports were not possible here. I love it when you can relate something that simple back to millions of years of geological processes. Alright, so we're finally driving up into the Cascade Range. Just as a quick reminder, the Cascade Range is an arc of active stratovolcanoes that stretch from up here in British Columbia, Canada, all the way down into Northern California. And as you can see, these volcanoes form a very nice, neat line, roughly parallel to the coastline, which, when you look at our cross-section, makes a lot of sense. There's a wide range of volcanic hazards associated with these volcanoes because the magma they contain is very silica-rich, more than 60%. This gives it a very high melting point, which makes the lava very rocky and very viscous, like imagine trying to stir cooling tarmac. This is very important because the viscosity traps pressurized gases, which when released, causes the volcanoes to erupt explosively. This produces towering eruption columns as well as rapid, dense landslides of hot volcanic debris called pyroclastic flows. On our left is Tahoma, or Mount Rainier, which is the tallest peak in the Cascades as well as the most likely candidate for a future eruption. If Mount Rainier erupted right now, the biggest threat would be the lahars, so here ash and glacial meltwater from the summit would combine to create dense but rapid concrete-like mud flows. Fortunately, geologists have been able to study ancient lahar deposits as well as study the surrounding terrain to calculate where the lahars would travel to and how much time people in its path would have to evacuate. Okay, sorry to rush off, but we've got to get to the next place. So, come on. Oh, hang on. We were going to turn that way, weren't we? Okay, 1 second. Oh no! It's all gone wrong. Oh no! Oh, I regret that. I've made a terrible mistake. Sorry. Can I just squeeze through here? Sorry. Thank you. Right, I'm really sorry now for, I guess, the complete tonal whiplash from that. Like, I don't want to cut that out, but like, it's gonna be a weird shift in tone. So we are now approaching the MacLeod or Mount St. Helens, and as we make the long drive up to the observation ridge, I'll do a quick run through of a very basic timeline of the events that led up to this historic eruption. So in March 1980, the first small earthquakes were detected, culminating in a harmless eruption of steam and ash. The USGS quickly established monitoring stations and an evacuation zone, and by April, small eruptions and earthquakes had continued to build in frequency and severity until a 400-meter wide crater formed at the summit. Though the crater attracted most of the media attention, geologists recognized that a magma chamber within the mountain had begun to extrude towards the northern flank of the mountain, causing the slopes to literally bulge outwards. However, with every passing week that the volcano didn't erupt, local governments, I guess, just kind of got impatient and reduced the evacuation zone closer to the summit to allow for logging to continue in the area. God, that's grimly familiar to current times, isn't it? Anyway, this is one of the hardest parts about forecasting volcanic eruptions, because if you pull the alarm too early, people can lose faith in your future predictions. So geologist David Johnston, he risked his own life ensuring that the danger zone was maintained, because otherwise the death toll may have been significantly higher. On the day of the eruption, May 18th, 1980, 57 people lost their lives, including David Johnston. And yeah, there it is. So why does it look like that? Well, the eruption coincided with a 5.1 magnitude earthquake, which triggered the largest landslide in recorded history. The northern flank of the mountain literally collapsed. Over 2.5 cubic kilometers of rock subsided, lowering the height of the mountain by about 300 meters. The collapse depressurized the magmatic plumbing system, which ejected out of the side of the mountain in a lateral blast. The debris was propelled out of the mountain at 300 miles per hour, knocking over every single tree in a 10-kilometer radius and projecting ash as far as Montana. But I think one of the most remarkable things about this eruption that I think the game portrays really well has been the recovery in the surrounding landscape. It's kinda hard to believe that just a few decades ago this would have been a grey, desolate wasteland. In fact, I reckon if you were to head to the clear cuts, you'd see greater ecological devastation. Okay, so we have one more stop in our tour of the Cascades. This is by far the most powerful Cascade eruption, if not the most powerful eruption worldwide in the last 10,000 years. But by no means is it the largest that we'll see today. Ooh, very intriguing. As many of you probably guessed, we are now driving up to Giwa, or Crater Lake as it's more commonly known. At 1.5 kilometers deep, this is by far the deepest lake in the United States. It's actually a crater, a caldera, formed by a colossal volcanic eruption around 7,700 years ago. Despite being so long ago, we actually have a pretty solid understanding of what happened here, thanks in part both to geological estimates, but primarily the oral history of the Klamath Native Americans who survived the event by taking refuge in Klamath Lake. So here we are, 8,000 years ago, we would have been standing at the foot of a 6-kilometer tall mountain known as Mount Mazama. When it erupted 7,700 years ago, there would have been an eruption column around 50 kilometers tall. With the underlying magma chamber relieved of 500,000 years of built-up pressure, the mountain grew unstable and the summit collapsed in on itself. At the same time, this displaced any remaining lavas and ash to spill over the sides of the crater as a pyroclastic flow, forming the 8-kilometer wide circular ridge that we can see in front of us. In the Klamath Native American lore, this was interpreted as Lau, the chief of the below world, rising furiously from the earth to do battle with Skell, chief of the above world. Lau, having been defeated in battle, retreated back into the mountain, only to be crushed under the weight of the collapsing summit. This region became an incredibly sacred place, and the lake itself, named Giwa, was only visited by high-standing chiefs on their vision quests. However, as I'm sure you already suspected, when white invading colonialists turned up, they completely misunderstood this relationship. They wrongly assumed that the Klamath native people were too afraid to explore the lake. So in 1886, when geologist Charles Dutton surveyed the area, he arrogantly assumed that the awestruck Native Americans he brought with him were the very first indigenous people to ever actually see the lake. The colonists renamed Giwa to Crater Lake and declared it a national park, and yeah, though I guess that gives it some protection today. This was literally their way of invading and claiming the land as their own. Since the eruption, there have been several smaller eruptions within the caldera, creating small peaks beneath the water, Wizard Island being the only one to actually breach the water level. However, with its magma chamber more or less depleted, there's no way it will ever erupt on such a scale again. The rain in this game is really pretty, I think. Anyway, as we make our drive back, I hope you found the history of Crater Lake to be very interesting. My knowledge of history, it's really bad. Well, actually no, sorry. My knowledge of history is amazing. It spans 4.5 billion years. There's just a bit of a grey area between, like, now and a couple hundred years ago. You know, like that bit where, like, most things happened? Yeah, I'm really bad at that. And I think that partially comes down to just our education system, but primarily just me being an idiot. And so in recent years, I've tried to do a lot more to teach myself specifically about colonialism and the British Empire, because they just don't tell you about this at school. Frustratingly, almost every geological feature that we have discussed today are more widely recognised by their more recent names. So Mount Jefferson, Adams, Baker, all renamed by colonialists in honour of white men, some of whom have nothing to do with this region. So Mount Rainier and Mount Hood, the tallest peaks of Washington and Oregon, are both named after British naval generals who were never even in this part of the country. So for the sake of this video, I've been trying to refer to them both by their modern and original names, just for some sense of clarity, but I really do believe we should just commit to changing names back. I'm yet to hear an argument why we shouldn't. I just wanted to highlight this because, really, renaming these features in the first place was and continues to be a colonial process, the entire function of which was to erase the indigenous structure of the land, claim ownership, rewrite history, and ultimately eliminate indigenous people entirely. So yeah, I hope you take that to heart and find it interesting. We've got quite a drive ahead of us, and I know I've already gone over time, so I might just shut up for a minute. There goes our previous victims. Okay, so we've successfully traversed the Cascades Arc and are now headed east into the back arc basin of our Convergent Plate margin. So as a quick reminder, whilst compression is taking place in the fore-arc, this is balanced by extension and thinning on the other side of the mountains in the back arc basin. This basin usually accommodates sedimentary deposition, however something really weird happened here about 16.7 million years ago. The dominating feature on this side of the Cascades are these flood basalts. As you can see, we've passed layer upon layer of that same characteristic vertical jointing that we saw at Crescent Lake. These lava flows literally flooded the entire back arc basin, spanning an area of almost 160,000 kilometers squared from the Pacific Ocean to Idaho and even northwest Nevada. Because the Earth's upper crust is relatively cold, it's not easy to deform elastically. Instead, it's very brittle, so when it is extended by subduction, it snaps and breaks. This creates fissures which are perfect for buoyant, low viscosity lavas to rise up to the surface. As you can see, these fissures align perfectly with one another, roughly parallel to the convergent plate boundary and perpendicular to the direction of subduction. With that in mind, it's no surprise that this entire region is so flat. Like imagine an old cobbled street being sort of covered over by smooth asphalt. The rock itself is the Columbia River basalt group and is subdivided into at least 4 formations. At its deepest point, there are at least 300 separate layers of flood basalt. However, that still doesn't quite explain why there's just so much of it. Over 96% of these layers were expelled in just the first 2.5 million years, so what the hell happened here? Well, the easiest way to show you is to drive back into Oregon one last time to show you the final piece of the puzzle. So we're just north of Bend, Oregon, and over there in the distance is Nuazu-Ho, or Smith Rock. You can see from here that the rock is very light in colour. That's because it is made up of extremely silica-rich material. It is in fact 30 million year old rhyolitic volcanic debris, or tuff. A rhyolite is a volcanic rock that is only formed by the most explosive forms of volcanism. Remember, we've seen silica-deficient basaltic volcanism at Crescent Lake and the Columbia River Gorge, and we've also seen silica-rich andesitic volcanism in the Cascades. But here we have a silica content of over 75%. This can therefore only be the fallout of mind-blowingly explosive volcanic eruptions, thousands of times greater than the eruptions we've seen thus far. So this can be nothing else but the remnants of a supervolcano. But if it's that explosive, where is the huge caldera? Well, we're actually in it. It's 25 kilometers in diameter. So what's a supervolcano doing here in Oregon? Like, wouldn't someone have noticed this? Well, several geologists, principally Carrie Gordon, identified similar ghost calderas all across the Pacific Northwest. Not only that, but she recognized a pattern. These calderas form an almost perfect, neat line from the west coast through Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and eventually Yellowstone National Park in Wyoming. So, if you cast your mind back to the very, very start of this adventure, we learned that the North American continent consumed a Hawaii-like island as it travelled west, called Silesia. Well, just like Hawaii, Silesia was formed by hotspot volcanism. This is where a plume of hot magma has risen from deep within the mantle to a point beneath the lithosphere, providing intense heat and energy. However, the thing about mantle plumes is that they stay in the same space beneath the moving tectonic plates. That's why Hawaii forms that beautiful chain of islands, because as the oceanic plate moves like a conveyor belt over the hotspot, the point where the mantle plume reaches the lithosphere stays the same, so the volcano appears to migrate, leaving pockets of basalt behind. When North America absorbed Silesia, it continued to travel over the hotspot that created it. Today, that same hotspot is directly underneath Yellowstone. This is why Yellowstone is so volcanically active. As it journeyed across the continent, a chain of supervolcanoes were peppered all across the Pacific Northwest, and in the future could continue to potentially spread all the way into the east coast. Just like Yellowstone, they've since been eroded. The older they are, the more difficult they are to see, especially from above, but the highly silica-rich tuff gives them away. And by total coincidence, guess where this hotspot was 16.7 million years ago when the Columbia River flood basalts were being formed? It matches up almost too perfectly. This would have been the perfect catalyst for the rapid formation of flood basalts, allowing lava to fill the entire basin with hundreds of layers. I hope you find that as mind-blowing as I do. I genuinely really love this. I just love how it all fits together. Okay, we have one more final detour, I promise, and then we'll nearly be done. So, as we have established several times on this trip, North America is gradually moving west, but the coastline is also extending west as well. This means that the Convergent Plate margin is stepping west, and has been for 200 million years, ever since the breakup of supercontinent Pangaea. How can we tell that? Well, we've now reached the Grand Coulee Dam. Dams are feats of geological engineering. A great deal of work is required to assess whether a region has the appropriate geology. Miscalculations can have dire consequences. The Coulee Dam, however, is in the perfect spot, locked in place between two huge bodies of impermeable granite. These granites are ancient batholiths, old magma chambers. They're ghost volcanoes, but they weren't formed by the Yellowstone hotspot. Instead, they are the older equivalent to today's Cascades, from back when the coastline was much further east. They're no longer active, and the mountains that once sat above them have been eroded down, revealing the solid batholith underneath. Hopefully this gives you a sense of how over time it's not just the coast that moves, but the entire volcanic system migrates relative to it, and over time is destroyed and re-established further and further west as terrain is accumulated and accreted onto the western shores. Okay, we can finally start heading to Spokane. Right, so, hi everyone. I have a bit of a confession to make. So, earlier on, I received an email in the game. I didn't raise attention to it, I was a little distracted at the time. And honestly, I doubt that scene is even worth including in the final cut, so that made no sense continuity-wise, but don't worry about it. Anyway, I got an email, and at that point, we officially went into debt, and since then, we've had 3 days to recover that money. I don't know if you've been paying attention to this, but we haven't really done that, and days ago I got that email. So, yeah. I was hoping for a nice leisurely drive back to Spokane. You know, we'd get some rest, talk a little bit about the rain shadow effect, maybe. Nope, there is not time for that. We have till midnight to finish this delivery so that I can sort this out. Otherwise, that's it. My garage gets repossessed and it's game over. So we have to haul ourselves to Spokane right now, or at least die trying. There's just a handful of small problems. As you can see, the truck is on its last legs. I'm kinda amazed that it's still driving, so it is not going to be able to go full speed. I am also on my last legs. My character needs to sleep, and we literally do not have the time. So we're basically going to be fighting against the clock, the truck, fatigue, and basically if we fall asleep at a critical moment, one crash and we've had it. So let's do this. Oh no! Here we go, this is it! Please. Phew! I think we survived. Oh no, wait, we missed our turning. Oh no! I think it's gone. Come on, you can do it, come on! Come on! No, it's dead, it's dead! It won't start! Okay, so we'll just have to call for services and just hope that they'll tow us to Spokane and not back to Grand Coulee. Yeah, okay, go, repair everything. Okay, repair everything. Yep. Okay, how far away are we? Oh my god, yes, look at that, it's just a tiny little drive across town. We're gonna make it, we can do this. Come on. Come on, oh, this is the worst commentary, I just want to get there, come on. Almost there, that's it. Yeah. Come on. Come on, little truck. Oh, I wish I'd named it, that would have been way better. Yes. Yes. We did it. We did it. Oh. Okay. Well, I say we did it. We were very late. And we were not paid. That makes sense. I wouldn't pay me, frankly, if I was 80 hours late. Would have appreciated, you know, after a couple of days into the trip, a little check-in. You know. Just says late. Like, how long do you have to drive for that to just say declared dead, like missing in action? But what matters is that we made it before midnight. That's all that matters. So I can now faff around with the bank and sort this out. Well, anyway, on that weirdly triumphant yet somehow still disappointing note, it's time to end. Thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe to the Paleocast Gaming Network for more of this nonsense. I'm really looking forward to making more videos, and if you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment or tweet me at Jake_Atterby. I will see you next time. I'm gonna go and call my lawyers. See ya.